We're live. Hey guys, this is Will, and welcome to the Nightmare Narrative Podcast. Tonight I have a very special guest. Say hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Great job. Jeff Santos. Jeff Santos is he is the director of Virginia Paranormal Investigations. He's also the author of Ghosts of Yorktown. He also is the person that founded the Yorktown Ghost Walks. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, glad to be back. We had a good time last time I was on here with you.
Yeah, that's good. Most people don't come back. That's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you're here. So, what's going to be different about tonight is we're going to have three main topics. The first topic is going to be spirits of animals. The next one after that is ghost stories. Jeff and I will tell a ghost story, a personal one, to kind of encourage you guys to share some of your stories down in the comment section. And the third topic that we'll talk about is going to be ghost hunting equipment. Some of the things that VAPI brings along, as well as some of the things that we recommend that you guys do, especially if you're just starting off. And before we get into those main topics, Jeff, there's two things I wanted to talk about real quick. And the first one is you probably haven't seen it, but they just dropped the trailer for Wrong Turn, the reboot. Did you ever see the original Wrong Turn?
I have not. I think that's one of those classic movies that I've never seen.
Okay. Well, the premise of the original Wrong Turn, it came out in 2003 or 2002. But pretty much these teenagers go out in the woods in West Virginia, and they're tracked down by these weird West Virginians out in the woods, and they slowly get murdered one by one, like a normal teen murder thing. But the first one was pretty decent. It was a cool concept. It was sort of Hills Have Eyes, but it's in the woods in West Virginia. And I remember just being scared of West Virginia because of that movie. The tagline was, "It'll make you not want to go out in the woods," but for me, it made me not want to go to West Virginia. Uh,
Kind of like the movie Deliverance. That was one of those movies. I believe that took place in West Virginia as
did
well.
it? I gotta watch it. I've
Yeah.
never seen Deliverance.
Yeah, that's another. See, that one's a classic too, where they're out there in West Virginia and they get captured by some of the locals that make them do some strange things. But that'll make it. West Virginia, for some reason, hasn't been painted too well in these horror movies.
No, and you know what? I understand why. It's uh, it's just not for the people that have never been to West Virginia. Let me paint the picture for you. When you cross the boundary, all of a sudden the roads just become cracked. There's potholes everywhere. There's trash all on the side of the road. The sign for "Welcome to West Virginia" is like the size of a postcard. And then the first time I ever went, we stopped at a gas station, just my mom and I. I was probably 10 years old, and we go into this gas station. Outside, this lady, I kid you not, she had two cigarettes in her mouth, two at the same time. All the cars that were around us had broken out windows. We go into the gas station, like there's trash everywhere, the floors are stained. We just need to get gas. And the lady behind the counter was like, she pointed to her husband, I guess, who's back there, and she was like, "Look, she brought a youngin with her," and she said it with like the smoker's voice, like, "Oh look, she brought a youngin with her."
This is exactly how these horror movies start, though.
Yeah. And yeah, so we saw that. We went back out to the car, and then we quickly went back to Virginia. We missed Virginia. I've never kissed the ground in our state before, but that was one of the times. Have you ever had an experience in West Virginia, Jeff?
I can't say that I have. I've been to West Virginia, but I stayed on 64 the whole way, and just took a small trip off of 64 because we went out there and we stayed at Lake Shawnee Amusement Park,
That's
which
right.
is the haunted amusement park out there, world's scariest places, all that. Um, that's out there in West Virginia. But I didn't really get to meet. I didn't get to go too far off the interstate. Let's just say.
Yeah, you don't want to. Um, but here's my thoughts on this trailer. So it starts off. There's no named actors or actresses in it. It's just unknown people that are doing it, which is fine. But the director, here's the thing, his name comes up. His name is Mike P. Nelson, and it said by acclaimed director Mike P. Nelson. And have you ever heard of someone named Mike P. Nelson?
No, what was some of his other movies?
He's only done two other movies. The other one was a movie in 2018. I can't remember what it's called now, but it got 5 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was a 95% or something like that. So this acclaimed director has movies that no one has ever seen, and I looked him up. I'm like, okay, how is he acclaimed? Does he have any awards? He doesn't. There's no awards from any academy. So somehow he has acclamations that don't exist. And
So that's just basically like compliments, right? Like his friends could have said, "Hey, you did a good job on your movie,"
yeah,
and he's acclaimed.
no, you're not acclaimed. You didn't win an Oscar. You didn't even get nominated for an Oscar. So this
Oh, is
guy's
that what acclaimed? You got to win an Oscar for
yeah.
that.
I think that if you're
Oh, okay.
acclaimed, okay. Here's the thing. Even before Leonardo DiCaprio won Best Actor, right? Even before then, we were still like, okay, acclaimed actor, right? Because he's still at least been nominated. People have seen the movies. But this guy, Mike P. Nelson, the balls to put this in this trailer of acclaimed director Mike P. Nelson for the Wrong Turn remake. Anyway, so that threw me off. And then you watch the thing, it's terrible CGI. The first thing that happens is they're walking through the woods, they trip a wire, and then this log comes rolling down, but it's clear CGI. And it's so dumb. I'm really disappointed because you can do a really good horror movie out in the woods with like a bunch of like hillbilly type people chasing after you, and I think that's a good story. And they even brought back the writer of the 2003 original, and it doesn't look good. And I'm really disappointed by it because I think that it has a good concept.
Right. Well, being an acclaimed ghost hunter, I can tell you that I've spent many a nights out there in the woods, not in West Virginia, but out in the western part of the state. And the thing that scares us the most, people will say like, "Oh, aren't you afraid of like, the animals or Bigfoot or, ghosts and stuff like that?" No, no, the things that we talk about always, the worst case scenarios are people. You know, it's people that live out there and they wear other people. And that's
Yeah,
what we're afraid of coming after us.
people that wear other people.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so so I was really disappointed by that trailer. But then the other thing that I wanted to kind of knock off the top before we get to our main topics tonight, tell us a little bit about the weekend ghost hunting. I unfortunately wasn't able to go. Now that Christmas is coming up, we've been very busy. So I've been working like a dog, so wasn't able to go. So this is the first time I'm hearing about it. Tell us a little bit about the investigations on Saturday, or excuse me, Friday and Saturday.
Sure, sure. Bump ass.
Bump ass. Yeah, you
This
texted
is
that
a
to me. I was like,
place.
have fun at Bump ass.
This is a place. It's an actual town in Virginia. And that's where we ventured out to Friday night. But it was one of the few times where we had some kind of a miscommunication because we showed up at the door and the person we were there that called us out was at work and wasn't going to be off anytime soon. So we decided just to head on to the next location. Stayed at a hotel out in Charlottesville, and then we went down into um, the Blue Ridge Train Tunnel, also known as Crozet, the haunted Crozet Train Tunnel. Now, this train tunnel is almost a mile long. It's under 700 feet of ground at its deepest part of mountain, and it was pretty much dug by hand back in 1851. So
Wow.
quite a cool place. They say when you go on the trail, because it's a walking trail, it's restored that people can walk on it now. But it says flashlights required, and I'm walking. I'm like, I don't need a flashlight. I got my cell phone flashlight. But when you get into the middle of a mile-long tunnel, the entrances both look like a little pin light.
Yeah.
You can't see anything. You literally can't see. We turned off the lights in the middle, and we played around. We ran because there was a lot of people out there. So we decided to experiment with an app, turned it on, and just to see if we get any responses, but turned out the flashlights and it was pitch black. Like you can't see your hand in front of your face. But that was an awesome place. Now the investigation that night, it was actually out in Roanoke. And the lady, it was a very interesting claim because it's one of those ones that you get to and you're like, I'm not sure we're gonna get anything here. I'm not sure that this is something that's going to interact with us that we're going to be able to pick up. She talked about always feeling something scratching at the bottom of her bed, and it would climb up on her bed and walk around while she was sleeping. And she said this thing would start to like, she'd see it under the blanket, like moving under the blanket. It would chase her feet. So she started putting on socks. And she said it would sit there and it would pick at her. These were like fluffy socks, some kind of fluffy socks. She said it would pick at her socks, right? And we're wondering what in the world this could be because it started right after her husband passed away. Well, this thing would follow her. She went out of town one night, and sure enough, it's walking around in the bed. So we're thinking this sounds a lot like a cat,
Yeah.
a lot like a cat. And she never had a cat. Her parents never had cats, you know. But I walk in there into this house and I'm doing the baseline sweep, right? And I'm using the K2 meter, which is not giving me any erratic readings. It's going off near the TV and the cable box. It's going off near the alarm clock, the microwave, the stove. I go into the bedroom and I put it down near the foot of that bed and there's a spike, large spike, and then it stops. It's gone. Doesn't go off again. I even set this thing on the foot of the bed and, nothing. Well, towards the end of the night, we're back in there at the foot of the bed, and this thing's sitting there through an entire spirit box session. We're trying to get something, trying to figure out, just rule out, is there a person that's in here messing with this lady? Is it really a cat? So I have this little cat ball that I carry in the toolbox. It's got a little bell in it. I jingle this cat toy above the K2 meter, and sure enough, it goes off.
Whoa.
This is a plastic thing with a bell in it,
Yeah.
right? And the lady couldn't get over this. I was surprised by it myself, And I thought about it and I told her, I said, look at this. I mean, this is almost like, imagine if we came in the house and you did have live cats, living cats. If I walk into the bedroom where this cat is sleeping, it's probably going to be there for a minute. When I put my hand down there towards it, it's probably going to sniff it and then take off running and stay away from me the rest of the night. And then maybe towards the end, it might get a little more curious and a little more daring. And if I sit there and jingle the ball, it might come out and try to get it. That's almost exactly what this ghost cat did during this investigation.
Wow.
So I thought that was pretty cool. Not 100% that it's definitely a cat, but
Yeah.
it was interesting. It definitely was. Um, but yeah, quite a time, quite a time.
I think that's pretty cool that you have the wherewithal to be like, okay, so if we are dealing with the spirit of a cat, how would it react? Like that's the thing, and we'll go ahead and we'll get into the first main topic of tonight. And the first main topic is animal spirits. And so Jeff was just talking about how they went to this investigation out in Roanoke, Virginia, and they come across what the client has been saying, that they've kind of had a spirit of their cat in their house. And so being a paranormal investigator, you have to really think about what kind of spirit you're interacting with. And we've done ghost dogs, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but for this instance it was a ghost cat. And so he treated it as if this cat is living. You walk up to a cat, of course it'll like sniff you at first as soon as you walk into the house, and it'll go off and go do its own thing. And then at some points in the night, it might come check in on you, rub against your leg, and then go off. So I think that it's pretty neat that you thought, like, hey, if this is a cat, let me pull out a cat toy. If it does show up on the K2 meter, which we'll talk about what a K2 meter does later, it'll show up for the briefest of moments and then it'll go away as if the cat was actually there interacting with you. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, and I even used, the IR thermometer, how it's got the laser pointer on it.
Yeah.
I even used that laser pointer and kind of moved it around on the floor, see if I could get anything to come out and chase after that. But not a whole lot of luck with the laser pointer.
I wonder if spirits are able to see that. Like, how, for instance, natural light, we can't see infrared light. Like, the camera's fine. But if you look at through a camera lens, you can actually see the infrared light. It comes up. I wonder if spirits can see both natural light as well as infrared light, microwaves, all that sort of stuff. Like, I wonder what kind of senses they have.
Yeah, that's a good question. And which would make sense why it came towards the sound,
Yeah.
you know?
Because I'm wondering if you use the temperature light, because it has a natural red light that comes out, but I don't know if you pick that up on infrared or not. Have you tried that?
Well, not per se with the
or night
with
vision, I
that
guess.
scenario, but the laser grids, yes. The laser grids you will pick up on IR.
Okay. Yeah, so
And
they
the
should be
laser
able to
grid,
see it.
right, right. So for those that don't know, it's basically just a bunch of laser pointers, a bunch of little laser dots that form a grid over a wall or a location that you aim it at to pick up anything moving by.
Yeah, a cat would have a panic attack if they saw
Oh yeah, yeah.
that.
I'd like to try that with a living cat and see what it does.
Yeah, with the laser grid. Jeez. So, what else did you guys do? Well, for instance, have you reviewed any of the evidence?
No,
No.
not yet, not yet. No, we literally got back last night.
Okay. So while you were there, the K2 meter reacted to you shaking the cat toy.
Yep, yep. The K2 meter, nothing apparent that came through. Anything else? The REM pod didn't go off once. It was just with the K2 meter.
While we're still on the subject, Josh asked a really good question. He said, "So how would you get an animal spirit to move on? They don't understand English most of the time." LOL.
That's a really good question, and people will tell you different things, but from my experience, you can't. You really can't get it to move on. A house blessing, I believe, gets rid of negative entities. A lot of times, it won't even work if it's a human entity that's not negative. The house blessing won't move that spirit on until their will allows them to go on. They feel they've finished their business. And when you have an animal that's in this situation, it doesn't have the capacity to understand. I need to move on to the light. It's staying there, and this lady never had cats, so
Oh, I didn't know that.
our
Okay.
theory was, yeah, our theory was just as regular spirits can move in a radius of several miles. If this was just a wandering cat and it found her at the right time, and perhaps her energy after just losing her husband, the energy she was giving off, the cat picked up on that, kind of like you need a friend, and stayed by her side. Who knows? Maybe they found each other, but she's very frustrated with this situation. She doesn't want it there. But if you think of it and you kind of look at it in that perspective, like this is the same as it would be a living cat. Just treat it like a living cat. Um, that's kind of what we advised her.
I know her name is Alicia. She told me how she's never seen a ghost before, but the only ghost that she could say that she's ever seen has been the ghost of her cat that passed away. She saw the cat like I believe she said it was curled up on the couch or something. But yeah, that's the only spirit that she's seen. And I've posted a video on my YouTube channel. This lady sent me a video. It was some sort of like ring camera, and it saw her as she came into the house and cut on the light. And as it goes from light to dark or dark to light, you can see a cat just sort of manifest on the couch. And she claimed that that was her cat that had passed away. It was a black cat. And then the lights come on, and then she walks away, and then the cat just kind of fades away. So there's definitely been evidence of or animal spirits that I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And this whole thing, if you look at it, this really screws everything up. It really does. In a manner of speaking, it can, because we're looking at human spirits and we're looking at residual hauntings and intelligent hauntings.
Yeah.
And this intelligent spirit, why isn't everybody who died still here? They have unfinished business. One of the theories. One of the theories is they're afraid to pass on to the light because they're afraid to face that judgment. But a cat or a dog uh, isn't going to have, once again, that higher level thinking that says, I have some unfinished stuff. You know what I mean? Like I got some kibble that I left in my bowl and I'm not leaving till that stuff's gone. Or you know what I mean? They're not going to be like, hey, I tore the heck out of that couch cushion. I better not go into that light because I'm going to end up in hell. You know what I mean? So they don't have that higher level thinking. So it kind of brings you back to wonder, uh, why do people stay here? Are our theories completely wrong? You know? And then what another question is, why not other animals? Why is it usually, and I say usually because there's some stories, of course, but why is it usually dogs and cats?
That's a good question. Now, the only one that I'm sure that I know of is in England at I think the Tower of London. There's a spirit of a tiger that is roaming around there. That was back way back when they had some kind of zoo, or it was one of the king or queens that had exotic pets. And there's a ghost of a tiger walking around, the royal palace kind of thing. So
And that makes sense.
yeah.
Well, like if there's cats, tigers are like big cats. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
So
You
maybe
think there'd be
maybe the animal has to have a higher level of thinking, like dolphins, whales, elephants, dogs, cats, that kind of thing.
right,
You,
right.
you think intelligence could play a role in that? Because we don't see ghost ants or cockroach. There would be a lot of ghost cockroaches at my parents' house if that was the case.
I've thought that that intelligence might play a role in it. I've even looked to like the biblical description of certain animals, where it talks about, because I've often wondered, just out of curiosity, because I wonder weird things sometimes,
Yeah,
and
that's
and I wondered why is it so unacceptable to eat a cat? Don't get me wrong, like I know why you shouldn't eat a cat, because they're pets and they're furry and cuddly and stuff like that, and I would never eat one. But just thinking about humans in general, like there's so many animals that people will eat, but they're not going to eat a cat or a dog.
right.
So I looked to that to see if there were any answers. Because even thinking you take it to a whole nother level, these people wondered for the longest time, are there animals that go into heaven? Do animals go into heaven? Um,
All
if
dogs
they
go to
have
heaven.
spirits here on earth, huh?
I said all dogs go to heaven.
I don't know. I think actually some of them go to Roanoke.
Yeah. So what dogs are in Roanoke, Jeff? This is probably the one dislike that we get.
Yeah, that one dislike. Whoever that person is that puts that one immediate dislike down, please stick around to talk to us. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, I want to know
Uh,
what I can do to get your business back.
yeah, yeah. Better picture or what? I don't know.
Yeah. I
Because
just put
that
up a
dislike, it comes down as soon as you put up the picture. Like you
yeah.
just post a picture, like, oh, dislike.
So whenever Jeff posts videos for VAPI, whether it's case files, gas scrub, and ghosts, within the first 2 seconds of him posting it, normally people will be like first, first, first. No, there's a guy that's immediately disliked, like hasn't even watched the video, just sticks around, subscribes, and waits for that video to come up, hits dislike, and then today I bring you on, and I put a thumbnail of us together. And I'm like, hey, 3 hours from now we'll do the live stream, and all of a sudden there's a dislike. I'm like, where did this come from? What did I do? Why are you so mad?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The all dogs go to Roanoke. Um, so the case we had that involved dogs was in Roanoke. And this case this past weekend with the cat was in Roanoke. So we were saying like there's something about Roanoke and ghost animals. Something about Roanoke and ghost animals. And this case with Roanoke, this was a really interesting one, and I'm not sure what to make of part of it. Okay, so this gentleman, he had a dog that he had his whole life, and when the dog passed away, he was of course very depressed, missed the dog a lot, and shortly after, he started experiencing some strange things. He'd wake up to something walking on his bed, and he thought his first thought was like, "Oh no, there's a demon in my house. I need to get rid of this thing." He just jumped to the conclusion because that's what the movies and TV, they build everything up to be
Yeah.
like a demon. Well, it turned out that he realized this was the spirit of his dog, and the dog went everywhere with him, followed him all over the place, slept on his bed at night. Well, not long after, he notices this other dog appears, and it followed him and his ghost dog around. This other ghost dog followed him and his ghost dog around. And then next thing you know, there's all these ghost puppies. And the guy himself, okay, now this is going to sound crazy, and he will tell you this sounds crazy, because he himself said, "Look, I didn't know what to think. Like I didn't think spirits of dogs could reproduce." And I've never heard of this either, of course, even being an acclaimed ghost hunter. But
Claim ghost hunter.
so this guy, I guess maybe we should stop there for a second, just discuss that. Like, think about that, right? Can these spirits, have you ever heard of spirits reproducing?
One other time, a Tappahannock, but otherwise, no.
But that wasn't with another ghost, right?
No, that was
That had that human element in there.
that's for another video, ladies and gentlemen.
Right, right.
No, no, yeah, I've never heard of spirits reproducing.
Right. So my thought was with this that perhaps this ghost, his dog, just attracted some of these other animal spirits. Maybe they weren't actually puppies that his ghost dog and this other ghost dog had. Maybe they were
Right.
just ghost puppies that were kind of drawn to these ghost dogs. You know.
Yeah, I did, did you talk a little bit about some of the evidence that we got from that one though?
Well, it was quite a case because this guy not just had ghost dogs, he also had ghost people in his house that were that they see him walking around Roanoke with all these ghost dogs, and they all claim a puppy and follow him around, and the puppies would actually suckle on his middle finger,
Yeah.
thus draining the energy from him. Um, we weren't sure. Like I said, this was quite a case. It was an interesting report. But we get back, and sure enough, in the evidence review, you can hear an EVP of this dog bark. And keep in mind, his house is in the middle of nowhere. It's up on the side of a mountain in Roanoke, 45-degree angle to get up this driveway. He doesn't have any animals, and we hear this dog barking. And we also picked up a woman's voice saying, "I'm scared." It was something to the effect of, "I'm scared of it." So it was interesting to validate this, to an extent.
Yeah, and didn't we have it to where like the K2 meter or some device went off, but it was when it was closer to the ground.
Yeah, it did. I believe it was the REM pod.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
because we
think
put
it
it
was
on the
the REM
bed or
pod that
something,
went
but
off.
then when we put it on the ground, it actually started going off. Like whatever it was, like it was coming up to it and like sniffing it and then coming back.
Hmm. And it was right when he was saying, because he could see these things. He said it's coming up to Jeff's left side or something like that. And then sure enough, the REM pod went off.
Yeah. Yeah. So ghost dogs, ghost cats. Um, you guys down in the comment section, do you have a story of some sort of ghost pet in your life that you've seen either out of the corner of your eye or you've heard or have felt brush up against your leg or anything like that? Definitely comment down below. I'd like to hear your story on that. So with that, we'll move on to main topic number two. And main topic number two tonight is ghost stories. So I figured that we can go ahead and just add one ghost story for myself and one from Jeff. Either something that's happened to you or something that you've heard before that was like, wow, that's pretty neat, pretty creepy. I don't know if you want to talk about it tonight, but one of my personal favorites that you've told from uh, was it Scary Tales from Beyond the Grave? Or is it,
Campfire
yeah,
tales. Yeah.
Campfire Tales from Beyond the Grave? My personal favorite that you've told is The Gates of Hell. I love that one. And I don't think my guys have heard that yet.
Yeah, absolutely. The Gates of Hell is a place up here in not far from here in York, Pennsylvania. And I've this is a report that I've known about for 20 some years now, and I've talked to quite a few people who have been there and some that have known people that have been there. And one guy, he said, "Look, I never went in there." He said, I stopped in front of him, and the seven gates, I guess to give the backstory, there are different theories as to what they are. But out there in the middle of the woods in York, PA, there are these seven gates. And it's said they're the seven gates of hell because if you walk through the seventh one, it's supposed to be the realm of the devil himself. Urban legend has it that there was an old insane asylum there back way, way back, but is there actually evidence of that? It's questionable. So this gentleman, he said, "Look, I went up there and I parked outside of the gates, and my brother and some of my friends went in there." And he said, they made it through the second gate, and something literally started pushing them around. So they turned around and they came running back. Like it was like there was a bunch of people in the darkness. They couldn't see anybody, but they could literally feel the hands on them. And the guy said, he said, look, he lifted up, he said, I thought they were just messing with me, trying to scare me. He said, my brother lifted up his shirt, and on his stomach there was a big red handprint, like something just grabbed his side, this big hand. So that freaked him out. Now, another guy I talked to that went up there, he said, I made it through the fifth gate. And he said, we got through the fifth gate. And he said it just started getting worse as we were going. And I'm like, what happens? Like, can you physically not get through these gates or what? And he said, what it really is you end up getting too scared. He said, we make it through the first and second gate okay. And then, after you make it through the third one, he said, we started hearing these strange sounds out in the woods all around us. Sounded like kind of like chanting type noises. And he said, we kept going and stuff started getting thrown at us like little rocks. And he said, we're thinking, okay, there's just people out here messing with us. It's not actually just objects flying through the air. We're going to keep going. So they get up through the fifth gate, and there's this woman, this old lady, sitting there on a tree stump, just holding this cat and petting this cat. And he said, we shot our light up on her, and she's just sitting there like this, petting this cat at 2 o'clock in the morning, out there in the middle of the woods. So it wasn't any hands or being pushed or scratched or anything like that. It was seeing this old lady out there that freaked them out, and they ran out of there. The last person that I talked to, um, it was a friend of that person, and he said, I got a friend that went out there, and she actually had to seek mental help after going out there. She had to see a counselor, and she just will not talk about. He said she won't tell me anything that happened out there, nothing about it, but whatever it was, it really messed her up, and she's never been the same since she went out there. So definitely a place that I'd love to check out. Um, According to legend, it's on, or to reports, it's on private property now, so it's not as accessible as it used to be. If it ever was accessible, I've never been there myself.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard there's apparently three different supposed locations of the Seven Gates of Hell. I know the one in York, Pennsylvania. There's another one up in Massachusetts. It's near Salem. It's somewhere like out near there. There's actually someone that watches the API that I've talked with that has been like, yeah, like it's out here, this place. Then there's another one that is down in South Carolina. It's somewhere near, like outside of Charleston, where there's supposed to be gates of hell. But all three stories say that the land has been divvied up against with different farmers and stuff, and so it's all private property now. Like you can't just go to it. Like you have to break some laws in order to go through. Um,
Right, right. There's actually one in Virginia too. I can't think of exactly. I'm not sure that one's called the Seven Gates of Hell. I think it might just be called the Gates of Hell.
mm. Yeah, that'd be really cool to go check out. Do a video, Seven Gates of Hell.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah, it
pretty
sure
neat.
would.
Yeah, I know one of those gates is at Crawford Road.
That's what they say. The legend of that basement, the basement to that insane asylum that's supposed to be out there at
Oh
Crawford
yeah,
Road, and it's supposed to
that's
be
right.
a portal to hell. Hmm.
um, no, that'd be really cool to go out there. And yeah, the old lady with the cat would definitely scare me because it's stuff that you don't expect. Like you expect to like get touched and to hear demonic stuff, but an old lady petting a cat at 2 a.m. That's weird. I don't like that.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's Bedford, Virginia is the one.
Bedford, we've been
Just
there.
pulled it up. Yep, we have. Yeah, yep. That's where the Seven Gates of Hell in Virginia is.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's probably a couple of gates in West Virginia. I'll have to go check that out too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But my story, and I'm sure that she's fine if I tell this. If not, she'll tell me. But my niece, she my oldest sister passed away, and so my niece grew up with her mom, and so when she became a teenager, late teens, she was really upset that her mom wasn't there for her, that kind of thing. And so one night she was playing with Ouija boards, and she was starting to get into like witchcraft type stuff, and she was saying she went over to my parents' house and she started throwing things around, and she was like kind of saying stuff about her mom, like, how come you're not here for me, like, why'd you have to die, that kind of thing. And of course that's at my parents' house. Like that's where she was at some point in her life. And so that night, while my niece is there, it's myself, my niece, my brother, my mom, my dad, my sister, and my niece goes into the kitchen. And as you're walking into the kitchen, there's a cross that's up on the wall. And she, when she walked past, this cross was turned upside down. And so it freaked her out. She told my mom and my dad, and they're like, okay. And then my dad fixed it, put it back up. Then later on that night, my sister went in and the cross was turned upside down. So someone else separately saw that the cross was turned upside down again after it was already put right side up. And we were all freaking out, like, oh my gosh, there's a demon in the house or something. And it scared us. So we went upstairs and we were all going to bed and everything. And my sister goes back downstairs. She goes in the kitchen to go get some food. And then when she comes back through, she sees the cross is turned upside down again a third time when no one else went in there. And so she comes running up and tells everyone. We all get into my mom's bedroom. We're all huddled together like, oh my God, like this is really scary. And then all of a sudden we hear footsteps coming up the stairs and everyone's in the room. Like no one else is outside. And we hear the footsteps coming across the hallway. And then the door comes open and we all scream. And it was my cat that came up. And it scared us. But then after that, the cross stopped turning upside down. But I thought it was really weird that cross had never done that before, and it's never done it since. But it did it that day that she started saying a lot of stuff about her mom. And her mom was really upset, and she had really bad dreams about her being mad at her for saying those things. Um, yeah, so don't mess with Ouija boards. Don't mess with any family members that have passed on, because that really upsetted her. And I think I believe that at least her spirit was, kind of showing her displeasure towards it, and that was her way of
Yeah.
showing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Um, but let's go ahead and move on to main topic number 3. And as we go through this last main topic, guys, go ahead and comment some questions down below. Jeff and I will go ahead and answer them. I have a few questions from you guys already set up from Facebook and from my community post from earlier. So our third main topic tonight is ghost hunting equipment. I have a couple of things that Jeff has sent me. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those up real quick. Let me go to the pictures. So let's do this one. All right. So I'm transitioning this one over. Jeff, can you see the picture?
I can't. No, no. My screen froze about a half hour ago for some reason.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
no. Well,
Yeah.
I can still see you. Let me
That's good.
see.
That's
Let
good.
me see if the live stream picks it up.
What do you got
So
on the picture?
yeah. So on the picture right now, if you're able to see it, it is the REM pod sitting on top of the basement stairs. Next to it is the K2 meter. Yeah, you can see it. It's sort of a little small. Let me see if I can enlarge that for you guys. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, so it's the REM pod sitting on top of the basement stairs, and next to it is the K2 meter and the voice recorder. So, talk a little bit about what the REM pod is, what it does, and how we use it.
Sure. Yeah, the REM pod is one of my favorites because the REM pod, what it does, as opposed to detect electromagnetic fields, it puts off an EM field. So you pull up the antenna, and the antenna sends off this signal, this field. And if something comes near it and breaks that field, it will alert you through a changing pitch and changing lights on the cylinder. Now, what's cool about this is something that anything that comes near will set it off. If you put your hand near it, you can see it activate. And the 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 REM pod itself will also adapt to whatever area you put it in. So if you put it in, in an area and there's something in proximity to it, it'll adjust the field around whatever devices are there. The only things that we found that will actually set this off, other than something coming near in proximity to it, is if a two-way radio is activated within about 10 feet of the REM pod if it's keyed, two-way radio is keyed. Also, a change in humidity. So if, let's say you're up in a humid attic and you come down into the air-conditioned house, when you set it down, within the first minute or two, it might go off as it seems to be adjusting to the humidity. But once it gets set with the humidity downstairs or into the new environment, the only thing that sets it off other than that radio being keyed is something coming near it, at least that we found. So other electronic devices, it's not something you're going to get false readings, and it's a great thing to allow spirits to interact, to activate it for yes or no questions. Now this particular one that we use, it'll also pick up temperature deviations. So if the temperature goes +5 or -5, or depending on what it's set to, it will alert with a separate light and a tone if the temperature is changing.
Yeah. So, what are some of the most interesting cases that we've had where we've used the REM pod and it's been able to kind of give us like an almost clear indication of what the spirit was, and and some of the things that we were asking where it was responding intelligently. Like if for instance we're talking to a person, we ask something about them, it lights up, and then we ask something that's not about them or whatever, it doesn't light up. Are there any instances that you can think of where we've used that and we've gotten what we would believe to be positive results?
There have been quite a few, and with this too, the thing is, it doesn't typically, just because it gives us an answer to a couple questions doesn't mean it's going to answer all our questions. And we have different theories about that. Perhaps it's because the spirits may be able to muster up enough energy to be able to contact this device 2 or 3 times, and then they don't have the energy to manifest to interact with this device any further after that. But there's been cases where, and one that stands out was where it almost seemed like something was manipulating the temperature on it, because Linda was asking some questions. This was an old farmhouse out in Matthews, Virginia, and she's asking some questions upstairs in this farmhouse. There's 3 of us up there, and sure enough, this was giving confirming questions. Because if you just ask, are you a man? It doesn't go off. Are you a woman? It lights up, and then you keep going on to the next questions. You want to go back and just verify that question just for
Right.
more solid evidence. So she asked these questions to verify, and every time she basically asked if this was a child, um, this thing would go off, wouldn't go off any other time. And she was able to narrow it down to a gender, to an age, everything, just by asking these questions.
Mhm. Yeah, the REM pod is a pretty neat piece of equipment. It's something that gives you immediate enjoyment as a ghost hunter or paranormal investigator, to see something actually interact and to, in real time, see evidence. Um, I would say that it's a good piece of equipment to get if you're doing ghost hunting, but it is probably one of the more expensive pieces of equipment. You can get some of the cheaper knockoff brands, but some of the really good ones that we use are around $100. So you'll definitely have to pay up a little bit more for those, but it's definitely something that you want to add to your equipment base. Now, the next thing that I want to bring up, as I pull it back over here, um, here we go. So something that we kind of implement in our repertoire. This is the picture of Linda walking up the stairs with her phone. You have Will with it appears to be a K2 meter, and you'll have Emily downstairs with either the uh, looks like probably a temperature gauge. So what's going on in this picture, Jeff?
We're doing the baseline sweep in this picture here. And for the baseline sweeps, we want to get everything that's the natural climate of the house. So we're going to take pictures of every room from every single angle, and duplicates at least. I prefer 3 if we can. Uh, we want to get the temperature levels in every room, in every area of the house, and we want to get the EMF levels in every area of the house. Measure for carbon monoxide. Do a carbon monoxide sweep. Um, And also, if they have natural gas, we'll go through with a natural gas alarm just to eliminate any possibilities in the atmosphere, or to see what the atmospheric levels are And for this, for example, the baseline pictures to talk about that are important because, for one, you take them in threes because if you catch something in one of the pictures and it's not in the other two pictures, you can clearly tell that something was there, that be it natural or not, something was there in one of the pictures that was not in the other two pictures. Um, this is also useful when we go over the evidence because if we catch something in a video, some movement or something that looks like a person in the room or a spirit in the room, we can go back to the baseline pictures and see what was in that room from every angle, and we could possibly eliminate and say, okay, that was just a coat rack. It wasn't a person standing there when we pan the camera over. So very helpful. Now, one of the issues, though, actually is technology today. Because when we started doing these baseline pictures, the pictures were being taken with a regular camera, the regular digital camera, um, and we were using a regular EMF detector rather than a K2 meter, which a K2 meter seems to me to be shifted to the left so much that it's very sensitive.
Yeah.
So now in walking through and taking the baselines with cell phones and iPhones and using the K2 meters, you got to be very conscious of that because a lot of times the camera, when you're taking a picture, will trigger the K2 meter. And if these two people are in the same area when they're doing the baseline sweep, the person with the K2 meter is going to get a false hit because the person with the cell phone was taking the picture.
Yeah, we get that a lot when we're doing the Yorktown Ghost Walks, the Ghost Hunter tour. You'll have people that will give them the K2 meters, and all of a sudden they'll get a spike, and they'll be like, "Wow, I got a spike." I'm like, "Well, you're taking a picture."
Right.
And that's a good teaching moment sometimes for that. But that's something that you have to pay attention to, and something that we do during those Ghost Hunter tours is we'll take people out to the Diggs house, and then right across from it is the Customs house. And at that point, there's two blocks that if you walk in front of it, I have them hold up their K2 meter, which it reads EMF fields. So as they walk in between, you'll see the light just start to trickle up. And I'll go ahead and pull up that picture of that K2 meter for you guys so that way you can see it. Pull it up here. There we go. So that K2 meter, that'll start lighting up when they go in between those blocks. And it'll be very steady. That's because underneath those blocks is a power line. And then when they walk back from it again, it of course goes away. And the reason why I have them do that is because um, it shows the baseline of what they could expect in that area. So, say we're asking questions and we're saying, "Hey, can you touch this or do this for us?" All of a sudden, that K2 meter will light up, but come to find out, it's only because we're near the power line. Had we not known that before, we would take that as a positive hit and that the spirit is interacting with us. And in fact, we'd be like, "Wow, that's really strong. So this must be a really strong spirit that's near us." And that's something that we're able to eliminate by doing a baseline sweep, because then we know where the power lines are, where certain instruments are that'll affect our equipment, like Wi-Fi routers will set off K2 meters and anything that deals with electromagnetic fields. And it's nice to know where those points are in the house, so that way when we get that hit, we know that that's something natural that's going on in the environment and not something that's paranormal.
Absolutely. Yeah, and two, the ones that are more likely paranormal are, like Will mentioned, they're there and gone. If you're there and it's just constant, look for a natural source for it. Look for an explanation because it's most likely not a spirit if it's constantly in that same spot.
Yeah, and the next picture, the other piece of equipment that we use is the spirit box. So I have a picture of Linda with her headphones listening to the spirit box session, and so tell our listeners what it is that we do during a spirit box session.
Through a spirit box session, okay, it's a radio, and it'll scan through different radio channels. You can set it to FM, AM band. It'll just sweep through the stations. So every time you hear, if you've heard one before, it's like every time you hear that, it's going through a different channel. So there's no real reason a whole word or whole sentence should come across this thing uh, unless it is something of an unexplained nature. What we do is, because we know that listening to the spirit box, when you ask a question, there's several possible answers that you're expecting, whether you know it or not. And your brain will take this noise and put it together into an expected response. It's called pareidolia, audio pareidolia. So to eliminate that, we'll have Linda wear these headphones. Now, in wearing these headphones, she doesn't hear any of our questions. So if she hears a direct response to something we ask, it's not because she was listening for that specific response. It's because she genuinely hears it. She didn't hear the question. She's not biased at all. We'll also play it through the speaker. We'll put a splitter in there. So one goes to the headphone, the other one goes to a speaker. So the camera can record it, because we know that if we have her just listen to the headphones and she comes out with a direct response, we're going to want to be able to show evidence of that, not just have you take our word for it.
Right.
So that's one way we do the spirit box.
And a variant to the spirit box session. I know that someone asked this question earlier. I'm not able to find it at the moment, but I remember her asking about the Gansfeld experiment, about having the blindfolds, having the white noise maker going on, and just kind of immersing yourself in the environment. Almost like if you guys have ever seen Stranger Things, where Eleven is put into that bath where she just kind of shuts out all of her senses of what's going on around her, and instead she just kind of focuses on her inner self, and she's able to go into the upside down. In what we do is, you put on headphones. It has a white noise machine, and so you're not able to hear anything else besides just like constant noise. And you have a blindfold on, so it's completely dark. And so the only thing that you can do is you can be able to feel, and that's it. And so what Linda is able to do, and what I've done once before, is kind of shut yourself out and just kind of fall into almost like a sleep-like state, and you're able to see your surroundings without actually seeing them. And some evidence that we've gotten from it has been pretty astounding, doing the Gansfeld experiment. Do you care to elaborate on some of the things that we've gotten from that?
Yeah, it is interesting, and I, of course, try to maintain a healthy level of skepticism when it comes to this stuff. What we with the Gainset experiment, I wasn't sure what to expect, because this is something that the only way something can communicate with you is basically through the mind, which can be dangerous to open yourself up to that, I believe. But we had several cases where it definitely seemed like something was there and interacting, and then we had others where it seemed like Linda was kind of coming up with stuff that may be expected in the environment we
Mm-hmm.
were in. But I remember on one occasion, I'll highlight one case where we were at this guy. These people had tenants downstairs, and the guy had all kinds of stuff going on, and you could tell it seemed like he was under some sort of oppression. When he came upstairs, he was sweating, dark circles under the eyes, wasn't getting the sleep he needed, scratches were appearing on him. Just to kind of give you an idea of the case and how deep it was. But we tried this Gainesfield experiment, and Linda starts talking about describing this little boy. And I'm thinking, okay, this has nothing to do with the case, nothing to do with any of the reports. I don't know where she's coming up with this. But she describes this little boy, his facial features, his skin color, his hair, the way it was parted, the jacket he was wearing, the color of the jacket, and the style that it was, like an 80s members only blue jacket and jeans he was wearing. She said he's on a playground in a city, and she describes the street, kind of a street corner playground, and that would look like it was in an inner city. And then all of a sudden, she starts talking about hearing these guns, like there's a war going on or something. She's like, this isn't making any sense. Uh, and then she comes up with this name, right? Well, the guy, you could see that his face just went pale white. He couldn't believe that she just said this stuff, because she did not hear any of this stuff from him. I did not hear any of this stuff from him. This, he told us afterwards. He said, look, you described my brother. The age you gave, the way that he looked, from his hair parting right down to the jacket he was wearing. That's the way he was dressed when he died. And the guy said the way he died is he was taking messages for somebody or something like that, but he was basically gunned down by a gang um, on the city street by this playground. And the guy whose name she came up with was the guy who was involved in killing this kid, who was basically, the head of the people that carried this out. So something like that to come through during this Gainesville experiment was pretty amazing to me, pretty compelling to me. Taking a unbiased perspective and stepping back and looking at this objectively, I should say, I don't see how she came up with that, because this had nothing to do with the case. So it was pretty mind blowing how this happened, and it's definitely an experiment that we want to keep sticking with in the future, unless of course something goes south with it.
Yeah, no one's been possessed from it yet.
Right, right. If that happens, we'll probably nix it, but until that point,
We'll keep doing it. We'll keep putting Linda in that situation.
yeah, why not? Why not? Whoever wants to, yeah, whoever wants to undergo the experiment, why not?
um, and then the last and possibly one of the more important pieces of equipment. I got two of them right here. Uh, are these voice recorders? So these two are different types of digital voice recorders. You have digital and you have analog. Jeff has a couple of really cool analog ones and cassette players and that kind of stuff. But digital ones, they're very cheap. I honestly, this one right here it was like $80. This one right here was $20. This one is just as good as this one. You can go to Walgreens, Rite Aid, CVS, any pharmacy type place, and you can find digital voice recorders, Walmart, Target, wherever. Just all you have to do if you're starting as a ghost hunter, paranormal investigator, uh, the things that I would say that you should start off with would be a voice recorder, a flashlight, and your cell phone. That's all you need, and then just get a basic bare minimum recorder, and just know that when you're recording, when you ask a question, you want to wait. We say about 15 seconds for a response, and then ask the next question, just to verify that the spirit is responding to that first question that you asked, and to get comfortable listening to your own voice, listening to some of the background noise, so that way you can kind of cancel out what's going on in the background, other voices, other sounds, so that way that doesn't interfere with your audio. Now, when you're using a voice recorder, something that I've noticed, and that what I would say all paranormal investigators kind of agree on, the spirit voice that comes across sounds different from a regular human voice. Um, it sort of has like an echo in the background, but it's close to the microphone. That's the best way to describe it. Whenever I've heard voice recordings, they usually sound like a light whisper, like a very mumble type voice like that kind of comes across, and it's something that you have to really listen for. But the really good ones are really clear when you put on your headphones and you really listen to your voice recording. Those are the ones that come clear across, where it sounds like someone that's not in the room at the time. Like we've had it where it's been just Jeff and I. We've gotten a female voice come across. So those are some of the things that you can listen for. What are some of the challenges or limitations, or some of the features that you've seen from voice recorders throughout your many years of doing ghost investigations?
Um, I'd like to use, like you mentioned, I'd like to use an analog and a digital side by side just to
Yeah.
compare the difference one of these days. But one of the biggest things is tagging. All right, and we've got to tag everything. Now, the proper way that I would like us to do an EVP session, that I have the way I have it written out, but we often don't have the manning or to do it, is being able to keep track of everything that's going on in that environment and outside of that environment. So let's take a residential investigation, for example. you would have the person in the room with the digital voice recorder, somebody outside of the room, somebody with the clients in the living room or wherever they are, and somebody outside of the house. Now, the reason for this is because there's going to be sounds that could come from everywhere. You want that person that's sitting with the clients to document every time they talk. You want the person that's outside to document every time he hears a dog bark or a car drive by that may not be heard from within that room. And you want the person that's outside the door to be documenting any house settling noise or anything that he hears throughout the house that perhaps don't come through that door. That way, when you listen to your recording and at a specific point you think, hey, I got an EVP, you look at everybody's log and see if somebody at that time that you heard what you sound like a voice, the guy that was outside may have written down, "Hey, kid going by on skateboard at this time
Yeah.
at 2 o'clock in the morning," right? But
At 2 o'clock in
at
the morning.
least you have that, and you can say, "Okay, it's a kid it's a late night skateboarder. It's not an actual voice." So the biggest problem with EVP sessions, I think, is people documenting them and sometimes not remembering that somebody whispered or somebody coughed in the background or something happened and not tagging it in the recording, and then some people may present that as evidence.
Yeah. Yeah. And just real quick, I know this is probably really bad for the podcast version. You can't really see anything that I'm about to bring up. Um, but something that we use quite often at VAPI is a trail camera. We use that when we do any outside activities. I don't, you were sleeping at the time, but the house we went to out in North Carolina recently, I had this put up in the hallway while we were sleeping, just in case if any spirit happened to walk by the room or something like that, they would capture it. But this is a really good motion detection device. You can put it inside, outside. Using the trail camera, it can take pictures, it can take videos. But anytime there's any sort of movement, it'll set it off and it'll be able to take those images for you. Something else that I bought recently. This is not a normal flashlight. This is actually an IR flashlight. So this, while you're using night vision, it kind of brings up a bigger field of view for your camera. Because the infrared on a camera just has a small little light that comes off of it. So it only has a small field of view. While this would be shining like a regular flashlight out off in the distance. But we can't see it with our naked eye because this doesn't work on natural light. So we're still in the darkness, but our camera can see a lot more because of it. Another thing, this one, if you're starting off, your camera phone is great. The only thing is the limitations are, of course, the lighting. So this camera that I got from Amazon, and then Jeff has a really awesome camera too. This is able to do night vision, and you can get one of the cheaper ones. It doesn't have image stabilization, which we highly encourage. But this is a very simple camera that can film in night vision. This is the one that I use for the Devil's Tramping Ground. Comes with a microphone, and when you turn it on, it has an IR light right up here. And it also comes with a built-in natural light as well. But this camera is only like $120 on Amazon. So at that point, it's like, do you want a REM pod or do you want a camera? And you can kind of go from there if you start to pick this up as a hobby. It can get expensive, but I can guarantee some of the lower end stuff work just as well as some of the upper end stuff from what I've seen. And the last thing that I have right here is one of these lights that you can be able to attach to your camera, or you can be able to have someone hold out. This expands the light. So in person, it's really bright, but of course on camera, it just brightens up the subject a little bit better. You can be able to see some of the things around you if you want to film while you are doing ghost investigations. It's a pretty, as an expensive tool. And what I recommend if you're filming with your camera, like your iPhone or your Android phone, don't use the light that's on your phone. If you do that, you'll get red eye. And red eye is really hard to clean up. Well, if you use an external light source, it kind of takes away that red eye. So that's just a quick tip from us that have made that mistake several times. I'm trying to think if there's any other pieces of equipment that we use when we do investigations.
Just the little things, that would be sometimes case dependent. Carbon monoxide detector.
Yeah.
We'll go through and measure for that, and various things in the element that are in the atmosphere.
Yeah, we use that. And the reason why we use the carbon monoxide detector is because it's been scientifically proven that if there is any type of carbon monoxide leak in your home, it can lead to hallucinations, such as seeing spirits or hearing voices, that kind of thing. And it's been known cases where people have claimed to see ghosts, spirits, and have heard them, but in reality, they were just having a carbon monoxide leak in their house. So
Right.
that's a way for us to go in and be able to rule out that as a possibility.
And it's nice to look for things that aren't specifically made for ghost hunting. Walk through a Lowe's or a electronics store and just think, how can I apply this to paranormal investigation? Because it's always neat to try to think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So if you guys are wanting to become a paranormal investigator, start off with a recorder, a flashlight, and your phone, and then just start picking up these little pieces of equipment here and there as you go along. Um, so that's it for our main topics tonight. I do want to go ahead and wrap up with some of your viewer questions that you guys submitted on the community post. And down in the comment section below, go ahead, drop some questions. We'll go ahead and answer as many as we can. I would like to start off. This is from Mary McDonald. I know that she's watching right now. She asked two really good questions, Jeff. She asked, while there's many different ways to investigate, which way has been more successful than others? I believe the sensory deprivation with the spirit box turns out interesting possibilities. What's your take on this?
I think it does too, because in doing that, you're giving it a means to communicate. Now, what 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 would be something that we'd like to try as a combination of the two, where you have somebody listening to the white noise, doing basically the Gainesfield experiment, and somebody right there in the same room, listening to the spirit box through the headphones,
Mm,
and see if the two of them, they can't hear each other, they can't hear your questions. See if the two of them come up with something related. I think that'd be interesting.
yeah, yeah, that was a really good question. And Mary had another one. She said, I was a fan of the overpriced SLS camera. Have you found it to map out a lot of the items seen with the naked eye, making you wonder how it chooses to map a spirit?
Yes, I've seen that map out. I've seen it get hung up on chairs and various pieces of furniture and such. The SLS camera, I don't believe in it. I
Right.
don't put a whole lot of stock in it at this point. It just, for one, you know, to map out a spirit, it seems to me they'd almost have to get a spirit to cooperate in that. Like, hey, we need a spirit to come and stand here so we can program this to map you out.
Hmm.
If you don't have a spirit there, I don't know how you would program it to map out a spirit.
Yeah, it's putting the cart before the horse.
Right,
Basically,
right.
we have to be able to have a spirit that wants to cooperate scientifically and for us to be able to study it in order for us to be able to grid one and then be able to have the camera program to know what to look for when it looks for a spirit.
Right. And experimenting with the oh, we used it in several investigations. What's that now the name eludes me. The the
Yeah,
Connect
using
cam
the
with the
Xbox.
cam with the computer app.
Yeah,
Yeah.
using the Xbox Connect camera with the computer, it basically simulates an SLS camera on just like a cheaper
Yeah.
version of it.
And very, very glitchy. It would always
Yeah.
create that little guy that people say, "Oh, look, it's a little midget ghost." And it's really just like a little glitch in there.
Yeah.
But another thing we tried with it, okay, let's say, what is it mapping out? We know it's mapping out a person, right? But a lot of times ghosts may appear in different forms. Perhaps they appear as in a misty form. So will this thing map out a mist? No, it won't. It won't map out steam and smoke and certain densities of things it won't map out. So I'm not sure what it's really locking onto there other than a person or what it thinks might be a person that's in front of it.
Yeah, I would definitely like to use an SLS camera on investigation once, just to kind of test it. But a lot of them are really expensive, and it doesn't seem like it's worth it. It seems like one of those ghost hunting apps that you get some kind of result, but it's not anything positive, I think.
Right. Right.
Uh, D. Howard asks, "Where's Jeff's beard?"
Um, I was this weekend where we were. I had to wear a mask for so long, so that when I took the mask off, uh, my hair just started falling out with it. So another bad thing about wearing these COVID masks, is that they will make you, if you have any facial hair, they'll make it fall out if you wear them too long.
Yeah, no, yeah, I know all about that.
No, no. After 5 years, I just wanted to see if I still had a face, and grow it back over Christmas break. It's kind of a fresh start.
Did you find the Ark of the Covenant under there?
I didn't, but I'll tell you what, I shaved this with a disposable Bic razor.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
yeah, I didn't even take a clippers to it first. Just took that Bic razor, and it was time consuming, but I hacked my way through it, and no, unfortunately, no Ark of the Covenant.
You're a braver man than me.
I did find the missing K2 meter though.
Oh, really? Yeah, we've been missing the K2 meter forever. Did you find my tripod?
That was up there too. Yeah,
Yeah, oh yeah.
yeah.
And then the last question that I have, this is from Kevin with two N's. He asked, "Are certain people more prone to experience paranormal activity?"
I think so, and I do think so. Now, I will say, statistically speaking, we compare a lot of times. We look at the client, and we have an extensive. We used to have a very extensive interview form that we'd fill out. Now we take some condensed notes, or I should say, or some smaller notes. But a lot of the activity would be similar amongst people who suffered from depression and anxiety. So we started to theorize: are people that suffer from this, are they more prone? Is there's something in in the chemicals in their brain that's making them more prone to being able to see these spirits? And you go about it and you say, okay, so, because some people might argue and say, well, this, maybe these people that are on medication, it's a medication that's making them see spirits, but at the same time, maybe it's something in their brain that allows them to take down that wall that some people have, that wall that keeps them from seeing things that are around them. So some people definitely seem more prone, and there's been a lot of others too. There's been some people that, no, don't get me wrong, there's been a lot that haven't been on any kind of medication or had any kind of condition, and they seem like they were very sensitive people, very confused. And these are the people that say, hey, I see these spirits all the time, and they're never the same spirit. It's always somebody different. They describe these spirits with detail, and they're wondering why. Do I have 50 spirits in my house, or what's going on here? And it seems that there's a lot of passing spirits. And if this person can see them, spirits are going to be more drawn to this person. It's like that beacon of light in the darkness. You're wandering through a crowd of people and one person acknowledges you. That's the person you're going to try to go to get your message out. The person that can see you, that is more sensitive. So yes, yes, definitely some people that seem more prone.
I think that's something that will make a topic of another live stream. There's
Yeah,
definitely a
absolutely.
lot more to elaborate on mental health and the ability to see more paranormal activity because of it.
That's right.
I know we've had a lot of cases where people have had negative things going on, whether they're depressed because they just got a divorce or someone just passed away or they lost their job. We ask that as one of the main questions when we do our interview is, what's going on with your life? What's happening there? And then typically we find out these people, they have something crazy going on where they're sad or they're taking depression pills or anti-anxiety medicine or something like that. Usually people that are heavily prescribed tend to see a lot of spirits, which could be a placebo. It could be like a type of pareidolia, almost like the carbon monoxide thing, where somehow because of that they're seeing things more than you normally would. But yeah, thanks guys for all your questions. If you send anything more, we'll be sure to add it to the next video. But Jeff, thank you so much for coming out tonight and coming back on the live stream. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to be back.
And where can everyone find you, Jeff?
YouTube.com/Virginia Paranormal.
Awesome. And check out his book. It's Ghost of Yorktown, written by Jeffrey Santos. You can also sign up for the Yorktown Ghost Walks. We do the traditional tour where we walk around Yorktown and we talk a little bit about the ghost history of Yorktown. And then we also have the extreme version where you get to hold these K2 meters and the REM pods and the spirit boxes. And we go through Yorktown and try to capture evidence of the paranormal. And we'll go ahead and I'll leave that link in the description below. And that way you can be able to sign up. We do that all year long. And thank you guys so much for coming out to this live stream every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Every other Monday, it'll be Jeff on as we talk about our weekend and we kind of let the food digest from the gas grub and ghosts. And then every other week, every other Monday will be a different scary topic that we'll discuss. But I encourage your live questions. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next week. And Jeff, if you can kind of give your normal send off.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for watching, everybody, and thanks, Will. I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And remember, there's more things to see.